You've heard Professor Flint on this program before. He writes with clarity and courage. He's written for The Spectator magazine about where Americans are now, but he makes the very, very salient point. If there has been fraud on an industrial scale and it's not addressed, it'll go on for decades. And his words, quote, America will be returned to the managed decline of the Obama-Biden years. I have no difficulty saying that I agree with that. Professor Flint joins us tonight. David Flint, good evening. Thank you for your time. You make reference to Churchill following Dunkirk, leading the British in refusing to deal with Hitler. Why should Trump surrender and ignore his rights under the Constitution?
Exactly. He should continue as long as he legally can. And you were very right to mention the state legislature there, because the state legislatures, as well as the courts, have a very valuable role to play. It's not just fraud, and the fraud is self-evident. It would be self-evident to a rookie journalist. I can't understand why journalists are throwing around the world the word unsubstantiated when they didn't in relation to the many charges made against President Trump. But there's not only fraud, which is on an industrial scale, there's also the question of unequal protection, and that is that voters are being treated differently. And this was the basis of the case Bush and Gore in 2000, where the Supreme Court intervened. And finally, there's been a lot of unlawful changes to the electoral laws. The power to change the laws is vested in the state legislatures, and it's often forgotten that they have a primary role. They're the only role in relation to changing the law. But governors and secretaries of state and so on have tried to change the law, and this is ineffective.
You make the point that the only possible explanation for suspending counting in key battleground states following what looked like a landslide to Trump in Pennsylvania would be to somehow alter the result and block the scrutiny. Now, I played on Tuesday some of Jeanine Pirro, who, as my viewers know, is a former New York State judge and prosecutor. Now, she's a brilliant host on Fox News, and she made this very critical observation. She's no dummy. Listen to this and ask why the media in particular are not seeking any explanations. This is Jeanine Pirro.
The Democrat cities were targeted by crooked Democrats who stole votes. He described election night numbers going in the favor of Donald Trump, but by the next morning, absurd increases in Biden votes. Curious, so many mail-in ballots for Biden with no down-ticket vote. In Atlanta, a sworn affidavit under penalty of perjury. The affiant of Fulton County Observer says she observed absentee and mail-in ballots being counted. Many of the boxes of ballots had voted for 100% Biden, 0 Trump. The ballots appeared to be perfectly filled out as if they were pre-printed, with the presidential candidate selected. Another declarant, who holds dual doctorates in economics and engineering from Stanford, states that Georgia uses Dominion voting systems, which has a history of technical glitches, and in Atlanta, these software glitches could have affected thousands of absentee mail-in ballots. On November 4, Biden received a batch of 134,886 votes at 6:30 in the morning. In Wisconsin, the day after the election, Biden received a dump of 143,000 votes at 3:42 a.m.
That's astonishing stuff, David Flint, isn't it? I mean, this won't be admitted in the district courts because those involved in the corruption, the targeted states, have Democratic sympathisers in all the decisions. That's how fraud takes root. What's your judgment about the likelihood of this stuff getting to the Supreme Court, which happened with Al Gore and George W. Bush in the year 2000?
Well, at some stage, courts will decide to give expedited discovery. One court will do that. Other courts will. They'll then take the cases on to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will have to rule on the question of unequal protection, that some voters have had to produce identification, go along and vote by 8 p.m. Others have got favourable treatment. That will be a significant thing. And the fact is, Alan, you don't stop scrutineers from scrutinising because you're worried about the virus. You stop scrutineers for the sole reason that you wish to commit fraud. That is self-evident. And why the journalists don't understand that, I don't know. But of course, as we know, the American mainstream media seems to have turned itself into the propaganda arm of a Democratic Party which has been captured by the far left. This is a very dangerous situation.
In your judgment, is time against Donald Trump?
Time is crucial. He will have to have decisions by the 14th of December when the college is supposed to meet in the state capitals. But there will be time for him even now to sway some courts. The judges have to do their duty, particularly the judges of the Supreme Court. They cannot sit back. They know, anybody knows, it is so self-evident that there are wrongs there. There's fraud on an industrial scale behind the hiding of scrutineers from seeing the counting. There is unequal protection in that some voters are being treated differently from others, and there's the case of Bush and Gore to follow. And there's very clear evidence of Secretaries of State and all sorts of people changing the law in relation to the production of postmarks and so on. And this can only be done by the state legislature. And in those battleground states, the overwhelming majority of legislatures are under the control of the Republicans and not the Democrats. There's a lot going for President Trump. He has a very good chance, provided that people are courageous, they don't surrender, and they do their duty, particularly the judges.
Good on you. Good to talk to you, David. There you are, Professor David Flint. We'll keep you up to date, saying things as they are rather than as some would like them to be. Thank you for your time.